Check 1, 2. Ideas? Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Is it coming out, Taylor? You hear it? You want me to check all of them? All right, I'm turning this one off. Can't hear you. Check 1, 2. This is red. Red. Check 1, 2. Is it coming out the stream? Everything I say should eventually come out the far laptop on the left. Good? I need your head up and down or side to side. Check 1, 2. You hear it? Okay. Red's turning off. Yellow is on. You hear me? All right. I'm going to turn yellow off if you tell me to. All right. I'm with you. It's live stream. It's recorded to YouTube. Yeah. Are you good? Check 1, check 2, check 3, check 4. Sounds really good. Can the board members hear me when I speak right here? Okay. They say it's fine.
Check. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. How's that sound? Is that loud enough? Okay. Check. Check 1, 2.
Everyone, my name is Jeff Baden. I would like to welcome everyone here tonight. In a minute, we'll start the Anthony Wayne Board of Education regular scheduled September meeting to conduct the school board's district's business. The school board strives to conduct our meetings in a proactive, productive, efficient manner that ensures the regular agenda of the board is completed in a reasonable period of time with each meeting. In an effort to do this tonight, we will need your cooperation as well. The Board of Education knows many of you are here tonight concerned about the district's mask requirement at this time and other concerns related to COVID-19. The school board members do value the public's opinion on educational items and allows you to provide comments on school matters of public interest during a specific time at each regular board meeting. During the meeting tonight, there will be a significant amount of time allocated for public comment to the board after the business portion of this meeting, as noted in the agenda. In addition, the board will accept public comment, as we always have, on educational items provided through the email. It's publicfeedback@anthonywayneschools.org. The board also expects the community members tonight in attendance will observe a reasonable decorum and expects there will be no disruptions to the business meeting or the public comment section. If a person or a group of people decide to disrupt the proceedings of the meeting, please understand the board will implement the rules as described in the public comment section of the agenda. I do want to thank you all in attendance tonight and for those watching on the live stream. Thank you. At this time, I will call this meeting to order. Mrs. Johnson, if you will call the roll. Thank you.
Mr. Baden,
Present.
Mrs. Brent, here. Mrs. Gwynn, here. Mr. Lutz, here. Mrs. Ryan, here.
Thank you. If you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. Item 2 with Board of Education, approval and signing of Board of Education minutes from the last meeting. Do we have any questions, comments, additions, or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Lutz and Mrs. Ryan?
Yep.
Or, sorry. Pam, yeah. Mrs. Johnson, call the roll.
Mr. Baden,
Yes.
Mrs. Brent, yes. Mrs. Gwynn, yes. Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now we'll move on to the financial reports. Mrs. Johnson?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda this evening is to approve the monthly financial reports for the month of August 2021 as presented on the agenda this evening. Under item B is to approve the annual appropriation resolution for the fiscal year 21-22 year. As I shared in my update, our general fund appropriations are 45.8 million. Our total appropriations are $60 million. The 45, the difference between those includes our food service, our PI, all grants, state and federal. Our fiscal year appropriations for 22 actually are equivalent to our ending appropriations for fiscal year 21. So considering the staffing that we did between retirements, new hires, trying to use federal funding to the best interest of the district, we are able to maintain our appropriations at the same level as fiscal year 21. Were there any questions on the appropriations? Item C is to approve the donations as listed on your agenda. We are always very appreciative of those. Next item, item D, is to approve the auxiliary service allocations as listed for both Lyell Catholic and Discovery Express. Monclova Christian Academy has elected to take direct payment for theirs, which was an option as of July 1 of this year. So we only have Lyell and Discovery. And we serve as a fiscal agent. These are revenues that come into the district, and we send them to the Lucas County ESC about as fast as they come in, and then we contract with the ESC to provide those services to our non-public. And that allocation, along with the next two, are not included in part of the appropriations tonight. That's why you're approving them separate, because I'm having they have to be approved as the funds established. So. Next item is item E, and this is to approve the Part B IDEA ARP, which is Special Education Grant of $219,357.91, and then Early Education IDEA ARP grant, which is $16,240.12. These are new revenues that are coming through along with ESSER funds. They are allocated to the district. We are in the process of establishing how these funds are going to be spent, but they will need approval in order to do so and then become part of the appropriation resolution. Item F is to approve the membership renewal with the Ohio School Councils for fiscal year 21-22. This is at a cost of $952.76. And the last item I have is a resolution approving the written post-issuance compliance policy. The school district, like homeowners, can, refund your mortgages to save money. Well, when the school district finances school debt, we do the same thing. We reduce the amount of debt that's owed, so it's a savings to the community. But there are guidance and restrictions that we can do, and we learned that even though we just approved our policy in March of 21, things changed so rapidly that we had to update our policy. So that is all this is doing, is updating our policy to the most recent standard. Is there any questions on the treasurer's report?
I move to accept the treasurer's report and financial information.
I'll second.
Vicki and Jana. Ms. Johnson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz? Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks. That was a lot there. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll move to the superintendent's educational reports and recommendations.
Thank you. So tonight, first I want to start off, I don't know if you happen to see a Twitter post that I put out today about 2015 graduate Sarah Wood. That was shared with me this morning, and I wanted to share that with our community. I've had an opportunity over the last month to be at different functions for the school district and share some of the highlights of some of our graduates. And when this was sent to me this morning, I just thought I'd share it out. And I think it's a true testament. Sarah joined the Ohio Air National Guard. She joined then the Air Force ROTC program at Ohio State, joined the OSU band, graduated, was deployed to Afghanistan, went back to OSU afterwards to pursue her master's degree, and actually had a couple more years eligibility in the band. So she continued on in the band. I think it's some of the things that she went through and it wasn't easy for her to go through those. She was a mechanic, had no previous skills as a mechanic and had to go through the training to become one and work on jets and so forth. And it's just, she wasn't recruited to go to Ohio State for the band and had to get on the band, and perform. And she changed instruments and things like that. So it's just, I think it's a classic example of how our graduates continue to show how they persevere, how their determination comes, as we talk to them about how to use that determination and work with them on that and the perseverance skills that we've done since 2010 or so. I think that just helps along the way in the work that we do. This is another proud example of what her family has done for her and what she's done for herself, but also I think a testament of our work here, not only academically, but in her personal growth as well. And like I said, there's been an opportunity or two in the last month for me to speak publicly to community members about some of our graduates, and I just wanted to highlight that to you today.
Thank you.
The next item is our enrollment report. I shared that, and you actually have a copy of that memo to you. I do this each September. I've done it since I've been superintendent here now, going on my 12th year. So I have the data back to 2008 when I served as assistant superintendent. And so you have not only a summary on the front, but you have the overall enrollment per building since 2008. For those that are home or in the audience, this is available on our website for your future review. And I just want to highlight a couple of things to you. Our current enrollment right now is 4,440. Since I've been in the district, we've been between around 4,300 to 4,500 over the 18 years that I've been in the district. And a variety of things, have resulted in that enrollment each and every year. Right now, our average class enrollment is 338. If you look at the distribution between grades 5 through 12 average 344, and K through 4 right now averages 312. So you see a little bit of difference in those averages. The current high school enrollment has ranged from 1367 to 1468 since 2008. And our current enrollment is 1403. Our junior high enrollment has ranged from 668 to 765. And the current enrollment right now is 702. Fallen Timbers, the range has been 666 to 750, currently at 688. Monclova Primary, this is the interesting one to me. It always has been since, when I first came into the district in 2003 as an assistant principal. That was our largest primary building, well over 700 students, or over 700 students. And that enrollment right now is at 547. So that has definitely gone down. And that's going to help us, I think, in the future as we talk about how to make some changes moving forward, at least some short-term things. The White House enrollment right now is 541. It's ranged from 419 to 570 over that same time period. And Waterville's enrollment is at 559. 437 to 581 is the range there. So the short term, one of the things that we're going to look at doing is potentially moving a preschool unit next year to Monclova from Waterville to open up a classroom, because we'll probably need another classroom. If you remember in August, because of the enrollment over the summer, we did add a teacher at Waterville to balance out numbers. So the enrollment there continues to grow, and we'll see how it moves forward. But I just wanted to highlight a little bit of that to you as we move forward and share those numbers with you. We monitor enrollment throughout the year, but I always like to share that with the board at the beginning of the year and give you a September to September comparison as we move forward. The next item that I have I was asked to share this with you. Roughly 80 physicians in our community, I say community meaning most of Lucas County in that community, wanted me to share this with you and their physicians in regards to their beliefs about safety precautions due to COVID-19. So I just wanted to share that with you as an information piece. This is also, for those in the audience, on our website as in the coronavirus section. So if you're interested in looking at that, you can review that letter from those 80 physicians. Next item is my presentation in relationship to COVID-19, just to give you kind of a quick update. This presentation is also available on the website in the coronavirus section, so you can view it as your leisure, or those are at home. I'm going to go through this pretty rapidly. I'm not going to talk about each specific item, but I did want to highlight to you some parts of this presentation. For those in the audience, you'll be able to see this presentation also on the screen. So when one of the things that happened in August is the CDC revised their recommendations for how do you determine safety precautions that should be in place in each school throughout the nation. And based on that and information from the Ohio Department of Health, they suggest you look at the level of community transmission, vaccination coverage, not only in your community, but amongst staff and students, testing for COVID-19, and outbreaks or increasing trends in the community and or school. So let me give you data based on that information at this time. So when you look at the community transmission level, according to the CDC in Lucas County, we are at a high level, which is the highest of the categories at this time. Lucas County positivity case numbers total over the last 7 days was 1,434, which is a 32% increase from the previous 7 days. Positivity rate as of today, according to the CDC in Lucas County, is 15.02, which is a 2% increase from the previous 7 days. The vaccination coverage in our community. I will talk specifically about Anthony Wayne here in a second as when I talk about the zip codes. For Lucas County, 48.2% of the total population is vaccinated according to the CDC. 56.9% of age 12 and up are vaccinated, and 59.1% of age 18 and up are vaccinated. According to the Ohio Department of Health, they're sharing with us that they believe 35 to 40% of all individuals in the state of Ohio that are age 12 to 18 are vaccinated at this time. I also wanted to mention too, we're being told by the Toledo-Lucas County Health Department that booster shots probably will become available for those who have already gotten the vaccine starting on September 20th. And this is just a slide. You've seen this last year. This comes from the Toledo-Lucas County Health Department. And this was based on the latest information that they've provided to us. I think as of last Thursday, maybe. And it just shows the vaccination totals per zip code. And I'll talk about those in a second here in the when we talk about each individual zip code, because that's hard to see. But I did want to remind you that we did have this data last year as well, as far as a very similar data that started. This vaccination data came out in the spring. When we talk about COVID-19 testing, the zip code data, like I said, will be provided here in a minute. As far as the positivity rate, we've already talked about that. I did want to mention that on August 3rd, the positivity rate in Lucas County was 8.63%. So you see the increase there. ODH reported that Lucas County has 448 positive cases per 100,000 residents over the last 2 weeks. That's the number that the Ohio Department of Health was using throughout last year, school year, was the cases per 100,000. So just giving you a little bit of perspective from last year to this year. And that same rate on the 16th of August was 116.42. And 7,963 COVID-19 tests were administered over the last 7 days. And I just share that number with you just to see, that's in Lucas County, just to see the number of people that are getting tested in our county. So when we look at the positive cases for ages 0 to 19 over the last 3 months, and this is data that came from the Toledo-Lucas County Health Department. From June of 21, we had 31 cases, which was roughly 15% of all the overall cases for the month in Lucas County. In July 21, we had 46 cases. And in August 21, we had 577 cases. So you see the increase in the number of positive individuals 0 to 19 in that age group. And also I will highlight too that that increase, or that 26% of the overall cases, it was the highest of all the age groups. So that's concerning as well. As far as the total positive cases per zip code, another thing that the Toledo County Health Department puts out weekly, so that's available on their website. And that's where we're pooling our data that I'm going to present here in a minute based on zip codes as well. As far as in the district, back in 2020, August, we averaged 3.25 positive cases. This August, we averaged 4. So it wasn't that big of a difference from last year to this year. The concern, though, was when you start looking at what happened at the very end of the month, in the last week or so of August. We had 2 cases on the last day of August. Last year, we had 21 cases on the last day of this year. And like I said in here, it says in 5 days, we went from 9 to 21 cases. And, I think 21 cases out of the 4,440 kids is not a lot. What I would tell you, though, is that because of the situation with the quarantine rules that were put in place by the Toledo County Health Department, it then resulted in the fact that we were also not wearing masks at the time, a significant number of students that were placed into quarantine for those 10 days and were out of school for those 10 days. Not to mention the kids that were showing symptoms that were also placed into quarantine based on the health department requirements, and also the exposures that were out of school as well from people that were positive, whether they be their parents, an older sibling, or in the community or athletic programs that they were involved in. When we look at the quarantine data, last year the average was 19. This year in August it was 57 each day. So when we looked at, I just took a snapshot of August 30th of last year, we were at 17. August 30th of this year, we were at 240. And as I mentioned, in 5 days, we went from 95 to 240 in the number of students that were in quarantine. So that was obviously concerning when we went through that increase, that rapid increase. And as of last week, I think on Thursday or Friday, we were at 98 students in quarantine. So even though we still have a number of students that are positive and or staff members that are positive, our numbers of quarantine students are going down, which should happen because of the fact that as students and staff wear masks, ultimately it meets the requirements of the Toledo County Health Department and lessens the number of students that are placed into quarantine by the health department. So when we talk about the individual zip codes, I'm just going to briefly mention a couple items on this. 134 positive cases in the 537 zip code, which is a part ours, part mommy's zip code, but I have to share that because we do have a number of people that live in that zip code. When you look at the 43566 zip code, we had 64 cases in the last 21 days. The percent vaccinated is 67.84 in that zip code. I'm going to go back to the last one because I didn't mention in the 43537 zip code, we're at 67.67% vaccination rate in that zip code. And that would be everybody that is eligible to be vaccinated, 12 and up. So let me go to 43571, that one that we're actually sitting in right now. 34 positive cases over the last 21 days as of the 9th. The vaccination rate is 62.51%. 43542, we're at 32 positive cases in the last 21 days and 64.59% vaccination rate. 43522, we're at 13 positive cases, 22.92% vaccination rate. And that's part our district, part into Otsego. And I think just Otsego. I don't think it's any of Perrysburg's part there as well. But that's only a small portion of actually our district in there. 43551 across the river, we do have houses over there, and students. There's been 129 positive cases in the last 2 weeks. Wood County's reporting is different than Lucas County. There's definitely not as much detail in the reporting, so I can only give you what they're giving us, and I don't have the vaccination rate per zip code from Wood County. That's not available on their website at this time. Some of the questions that I know that you've been receiving and or I've been receiving, so we did want to address these questions because it seems to be some of the most prevalent questions. Does the district receive more money from the government if they require masks? And that answer is emphatically no. There's no mask incentive. There's no more money that is given to the school district if we have masks on. ESSER money. Do we get more ESSER money if we implement COVID-19 safety precautions? No. All public schools in the United States receive ESSER money. And it's basically based on a variety of characteristics about your school, whether it's about your students, income rates, and so forth. But it's not based on whether you have implemented safety precautions in your school district. It's actually there to not only help with facilitating student learning, like we're trying to do with summer school this summer. We added more than we've ever had before. We've added more teachers to do intervention along the school district. We're going to go through a process so that we can replace some of our ventilation systems in our buildings from univents and heating and air. There's a variety of things that are going to happen, as well as also supplement some of what we've been paying out through our normal general fund dollars through the ESSER fund, which is allowable, which then ultimately also saves the district money, but also saves taxpayers money in the direct taxes that come to the school district through property taxes. Was the decision to require masks politically driven? No. I'm not running for office and don't have absolutely no desire to do so. The decision was made, honestly, to reduce the number of students that were in quarantine. We want to stay in school. We want every student to have the ability to come here, be in person, and be educated. That's the answer. Who quarantines students? The school district does not quarantine students. The only thing that we can do is technically exclude a student from being in attendance because they've been placed in quarantine. We do not quarantine students. The Lucas County Health Department is the only one who can quarantine students. So when we talk about in-person learning, if we look back at the data to where we were at the end of August, going into the beginning of September, and really currently, that data was very reflective of where we were at back in November of 2021, when we were forced to, by the health department, to go to remote learning. And we stayed there through, I think, January into February. I'm trying to remember that. But, we don't want to be there. We do not want to go back to remote learning. We do not want to do what some of the school districts in the state of Ohio had to do based on their quarantine data. And they were forced to by the health department to go remote because they had so many kids out of their school buildings and absent because they were in quarantine. We don't want to be there. And so that's why we made the decision to require masks in the building. I do want to mention that, obviously, most of us are not a fan of this. Most of us do not want to wear them. And it's not because we don't want to protect our fellow citizens or our fellow classmates or our fellow staff members. It's because they're irritating. They're not fun to wear, okay? But we made the choice to make it a requirement so that our students can learn. We're up here as a school board, as administrators in our buildings, in our district, because we want kids to be in the building to learn. We want to be in front of them, teaching them. We want to be there for them, not only for their academic learning, but also to build relationships with them that help them learn. We want to be there with them, to teach them. And that's why we ask them to wear a mask. And that's why we ask our staff to wear a mask. And that's why, we do what we do. We're here for the kids. And we're trying to do what we can within the requirements that are placed in front of us in an effort to keep kids in school. That's my presentation as far as the COVID update. One of the things that I will mention is, what's our exit plan? Because I've been asked that before as well. The exit plan depends on the data and where the data goes within the items that I just mentioned. If we can get back to July and June numbers, then yeah, it makes sense to not have hardly anything in place. But I'm not sure we're going to be there in the near future. When I say that near future, what we're hearing is that the current COVID numbers are going to only continue to escalate, probably through a peak sometime in the beginning to middle October. And then we got to come down from that peak, like we've seen in the past, where we've had 3 major peaks of COVID cases. And then maybe something will happen in between that will change what we have to do moving forward. So please know that we continue to follow the data. We continue to follow the rules that we're required to follow within the law, and we'll continue to do so moving forward to educate our kids. Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fritz. I think I wanted to make a brief comment too, and just to thank you for all the extra time and work, and especially Mr. Herman and Mrs. Williams and the nurses and the entire staff. And I might as well throw in the parents. I mean, I think everyone is going through many extraordinary things that we didn't expect to at the beginning, but our staff and administrative guys have just been workhorse through this time, and I want to thank them for that effort. I did prepare also just a small statement on my behalf. I just wanted to, I'll just read it here, and it echoes some of Dr. Fritz's comments too. I think we can all agree that nobody likes the mask. In particular, I think we're all COVID fatigued. I hear that a lot. I understand the frustration, but I want to say that obviously it's not over yet. We as a board and administration will continue to lead and manage to the best of our ability. We're doing this for the kids and the teachers and the staff that are in the buildings every day along with the kids. I'm very encouraged by the numerous letters of support that we have received, as well as letters from the doctors and local hospitals about managing the situations of this pandemic. And as well, I am listening to the voices of those concerned that believe we're not acting in their preferred direction. I do read every email that comes across the desk, I think, as well as all the rest of the board members. We do have a board here with varying backgrounds and expertise and individual opinions. We look at a lot of data from multiple sources, multiple organizations on both sides of every issue. So we use that to make our judgments and guide our decisions. And I want to close, I guess, by saying that we're doing a lot of great things at Anthony Wayne Schools here. I hear these good stories every day in the midst of, and even in spite of, all these new and ever-changing challenges that we've got. So we have the kids in school. We're doing in-person learning. They're interacting. We have real teachers, and that's the best thing we can do. And that's our goal, is to keep these kids in school. So that's my my comment. I think if I'd ask any other board members if they would like to say anything or not to.
So I'd like to just echo some
Sure.
of it. I remember, I think it was March
Closer.
of 2020. Is that better?
Are you on?
It says it's on.
I'm gonna hold it down.
She's not on.
Is that better?
There it is. I heard it.
Is that better?
Yeah.
There we go. So I think it was March of 2020 that the kids got sent home, right? I remember being a parent and having the kids come home, and I remember having events canceled, right? I remember sporting events being canceled. I remember no prom. I remember the graduation ceremony, right, didn't happen in person. And I also remember then celebrating the return to school. It was masked, but we celebrated at my house, right? We were so happy that the kids were back in school. I'm thankful that we had an in-person graduation. I know I mentioned that at one of the meetings earlier. It was a fabulous in-person graduation. I'm really, really thankful for that. I'm thankful the kids had a prom. I'm thankful we had sporting events. That's all great. That's all about keeping the kids in school. I just want to thank Dr. Fritz and the entire administrative staff, the teachers, the custodial staff, the bus drivers, everybody in the school district for helping us get through this. I really, really mean that. Thank you for navigating these quarantine guidelines. They're confusing. Thank you. Thank you for just keeping track, right? The keeping track is a big job. I appreciate that. Thank you for making the necessary course corrections as we get through this. Thank you for answering all the phone calls, all the emails. It's a lot. We read them all. And Jim, I don't know where you find the time to answer everything, but thank you for that. And lastly, I wanted to thank, the parents, the grandparents, the family members, everybody that's here. This is what it's all about, right? An opportunity to share our thoughts, what we believe. So thank you. Your messages, right? Your conversations help guide us. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well said.
Is it on? Yep, good. All right. Sometime this summer, maybe even last month, Jim shared with us a study from Harvard and MIT, I believe it was, on students' anticipation for the school year. And the number one thing that they wanted to do was have in-person learning. That is our goal, to have our students here because obviously they want to be here. We're not the enemy. Unfortunately, it's the virus that's the enemy, and we have to deal with it. We have to follow the rules that are placed in front of us. And again, it's been a very trying time. I do commend our administration. I know firsthand what they are all going through. But together, we will get through this, and someday we will be without masks, and hopefully COVID will be a word from history. Thank you.
Anybody else?
So we'll go through the rest of my section at this time. Go to item B, overnight trips. You see that there are 3 overnight trips. Obviously, as we look forward to our students attending these events, 2 of them are through Penna. One of them is through us. We're hopeful that these events will happen. We are hopeful that our students can attend them as well. Item G is a graduation approval. It's always nice to see a student finish their requirements early. And this gentleman is a great student. I know the family. And I know he's got some athletic aspirations in hockey. And so he's going to graduate early at this time in the class of 2022. So it's technically our first graduate from the graduate class of 2022. Educational agreements are listed in item D. You have 9 different agreements. Those are all for students that have specific needs, and we have to provide those needs to those students, as we should. So those agreements are for. I'm sorry. So that's A through D, and I would ask, unless you have questions at this time, that you approve all items in A through D.
I'll second.
Mrs. Johnson, if you call the roll.
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you. Item A of the personnel recommendations, resignations and/or retirements. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Mark Nell, our former baseball coach, has done that job for many, many years. We appreciate his time and energy that he has put into that position. The field is a better place because of Mr. Nell and Coach Nell. And the time and energy that not only he put in there, that he worked with our parents and our students on to put that field together. Can't thank him enough for that. As well as then his service to be a coach, as a former coach of a couple different sports. The time and energy that goes into it is tremendous, and so we do appreciate all the time and energy that took away from his life to be here for those students and to go through that and his successes in that position. Lori Hankins, I've had the opportunity now as superintendent to have Lori as my administrative assistant for the last 11 years, going on 12. She's going to retire on January 1st to retirement. And I'm sure she'll be spending some time in the sunshine after that. I just want to wish her well in doing so and thank her for all of her time and energy, because she has to do some things on the weekends and at nights and that I ask of her to do. And I can't thank her enough for all that she's done, not only for me, our office, and all of the administrators in the office and the district for that matter. So I thank her for that. And then we have Lori, who's just changing some positions, and so she is going to resign that position. Item B, the employment section. We have 2, 4, 5 people that we're hiring for positions. We're always looking to hire more substitute positions, more bus drivers. Anybody in the audience that's willing to be a bus driver, the rate is very good. It's a very rewarding job. I'd encourage you to think about it because we need bus drivers all the time, as well as sub-bus drivers as well. Item C, substitute employees. So you see those listed there. We're always happy to add more employees that can provide substitute services for us, for those who are out of their job on that day. Item D are volunteers. We have 4 different athletic sports for volunteers, as well as the band volunteers. And the band volunteers, I think, primarily are going to start working with the marching band, when they're at different sporting events, but also for the trip coming up. Item E are limited supplemental contracts, as you see listed there for the 2 hockey coaches. Item F are supplemental contracts for various positions in the district at this time. Item G are the contract amendments as listed. So at this time, I would ask that you approve items A through G in one motion, unless you have questions.
Ms. Johnson, if you call the roll.
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Fritz, for all of your reports and work. Okay, at this time, we'll move to our next agenda item is recognition of visitors. And I've got some ground rules to read about first before we start. And then we'll be calling names. Sorry. During this section of the meeting, in an effort to provide a significant time for public comments, the board members and administration will be listening to public comments but will not be engaging in dialogue with the speaker or answering direct questions at this time. As I shared at the beginning of the meeting, the Board of Education knows many of you are here tonight, either for or against the COVID-19 safety precautions in the district. The school board members do value public opinion on educational items and allow you this time to provide comments on school matters of public interest. During the public comment section, We expect while here in attendance at the board meeting and while you are on school property, that you respect the right of each individual to have their own opinion on these topics and not disrupt them while they are providing their public statement to the Board of Education. And do not negatively engage each other in the audience or while on school property. Each speaker will be given up to 5 minutes to speak and will only have one opportunity tonight to provide the public comments. I will call each speaker to the podium for those that have signed up prior to the meeting start tonight for their comments. Also, please know at the end of the meeting, the expectation for attendees is that you also respect each other while exiting the building and the grounds. The doors will be closed 10 minutes after the end of this meeting. So the following rules, these should be listed in your agenda if you have them, just to highlight a few of them. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and will be requested to preface their comments by announcing their name, address, and group affiliation, if and when appropriate, and then their concern or suggestion. No participants may speak more than once on the same topic. All the statements should be directed to the presiding officer, and nobody can address or question the board members individually. Complaints to the board concerning any school employee must be made in writing, signed by the individual making the complaint. And then the presiding officer, myself, we can prohibit any comments that are frivolous, repetitive, or harassing, interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, off-topic, antagonistic, obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe a reasonable decorum. Request the assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of a disorderly person when that person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of a meeting. Call for recess or adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. And waive these rules with the approval of the board when necessary for the protection or privacy of the administration of the board's business. So with that, thank you again for coming tonight and for following these meetings and the next these rules for the next section of the meeting. At this time, I will call our first speaker from the list is Jim Schliebert. Apologize if I said that wrong.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Jim Schliebert, and my daughter is in 7th grade. I live on Newberry Lane. I have been a Toledo police officer for 26 years. I almost never speak publicly about my service. I am doing so tonight because I want to mention that the first part of my oath was the preservation of life. That is something I have taken seriously. It's sacred to me for the last 26 years, last quarter century. I also want to make clear I'm not here to talk about COVID-19 not being real. What I am here to suggest is our reaction to this virus is way overblown and out of proportion. What started out last year as 2 weeks to flatten the curve turned into last week the President of the United States telling you, you will not be able to work if you don't take a vaccination you do not want. What we have done for this virus is locked up our elderly, destroyed our economy, put face masks on healthy people, especially our beautiful children that don't get sick from this virus, for a virus that has a 99.8 survivability rate untreated, 99.8% untreated. And there were treatments at the beginning that they banned. This is the first virus in modern medicine, which goes back 160 years. Diagnosis of disease in the past was based upon symptoms. 70% of people with COVID, according to the CDC, don't know they're sick or have minor symptoms. We have to take a test for most of our people to know that they have COVID-19. Let's talk about these tests. The PCR test, which we started back in April and May of last year in our nursing homes, which brought our numbers up, have now been deemed inappropriate December by the CDC, December of this year, not in use because they're faulty. The CDC has required that the new tests that are required by December of this year have to differentiate between COVID-19 and the flu. Think about that. Differentiate between COVID-19 and the flu. Okay, let's talk about the flu. Last year, the CDC recorded 2,038 cases of the flu in the United States of America. Not deaths, cases. Annually, every year until last year, we have in this country millions of cases of flu. Annually, we have 40 to 60,000 of our citizens die from the flu, but not last year. Let's start thinking, people, okay? Let's talk about our experts. All our experts ever say are mask, vaccinate, social distance, hand sanitize, lock yourself up. You never ever hear from these public experts, ever, things that boost your immune system like healthy diet, exercise, don't drink, don't smoke, vitamin D or sunlight. Never do we hear that from our experts. Let's talk about our experts. Dr. Fauci. At the very beginning of this, Dr. Fauci said there's no such thing as asymptomatic spread. Oh boy, there sure is now. At the beginning of this, Dr. Fauci said masks do not work. Oh wait, now you need to wear one. Last Christmas, you need to wear two. Now we're back to one. Dr. Fauci has been all over the place about vaccinations. The only thing that he's really kind of been consistent on recently is that if you don't vaccinate, you're going to lose your freedoms. Same thing our president said last week. Let's talk about Eric Jasinski, our health department director, the person that you follow as a board, which, by the way, they are not laws, they are not mandates, they are guidelines. We are following guidelines. But, please, because of time, Jasinski has never worked one day in healthcare. Not one day in healthcare his entire career. He's not a doctor, not a nurse, not a therapist, nothing, not even an aide. He is a bureaucrat with a degree in public health. But that's who our boards, that's who our people are listening to. Let's talk about masks, cloth masks, okay? They have a porous space between 20 and 100 microns. The virus is less than 1 micron in size. What that means is these masks you're putting on our healthy children do nothing. The virus goes right in and out. I've got studies here, which I will provide to the board after I'm done, from a local doctor, 10 of them, I brought a few copies, that show the ineffectiveness of masking our population. These masks here that I bought this weekend at a pharmacy, at pharmacies in this area, have on them, like the ones that some of you have in your face, this is it right here, they have a bacterial effectiveness of 2.5 microns. Bacteria are larger than viruses, okay? So you're not stopping anything with that mask you have on your face. These say right on here, not for healthcare, but they're in the healthcare section. All right, all these masks do are increase depression, suicide, take away what it's like to be human, what it is like to look at each other's faces and really learn from each other. People don't want them. Your population here in Anthony Wayne do not want them. Go to Kroger tonight, go to the White House Inn, go to the Anthony Wayne open house, you will see almost nobody wearing the mask. Your people don't want them. I started at the beginning to talk about my oath. The second part of my oath I took as a police officer was the preservation of the Constitution, freedom. You don't have a right, Jasinski doesn't have a right to tell us to put masks on our kids' face all day long. Be leaders, be bold, don't follow the leader, end the mask requirement. Let it be a family choice. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. The next speaker, Karen Schneider.
Good evening, Superintendent Fritz, Assistant Superintendent Herman. Oh. Is that better? No? Sorry. Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Fritz, Assistant Superintendent Herman, Treasurer Johnson, and the Anthony Wayne Board of Education. My name is Karen Schneider. I live at 7035 Finsel Road. And before I start, I would like to acknowledge the hard work and countless hours all of you have put in to try and lead Anthony Wayne through this troubling time. I do have two things I'd like to speak on tonight. Number one, home base. This is home base. The purpose of home base at Anthony Wayne Junior High and high schools is to promote meaningful relationships between staff and students while providing future planning and career exploration opportunities. Through twice-a-week meetings, students will experience a more personalized environment with strategic activities to encourage academic and personal progress, as well as career readiness and future planning. This is an opportunity for all students to find a positive connection and rapport with at least one staff member at AW, as well as an opportunity for staff members to reap benefits of working with youth outside of the academic setting. The role of the student during home base: actively engage and participate in group activities, cultivate and promote a healthy and safe school climate, develop, pursue, and achieve academic and personal goals, help the home base group solve current issues and concerns. The role of the teacher: act as a coach and advocate, work to build relationships, encourage students to build relationships, encourage students to participate in the life of AW, encourage students to achieve their academic and personal potential, obtain answers to students' questions, facilitate discussion of relevant topics, discuss current issues in student lives, help students problem solve current concerns or issues, help students guide other students through problems. My concern here is this holds zero educational value. Home base is held every Wednesday and Thursday, 30 minutes each time for 1 hour per week, 4 hours per month, 36 hours per year, 216 hours over the course of a junior high and high school. This does nothing to educate my child in reading, math, writing, science, and social studies. Recent conversations in home base centered around what a student's favorite color was, playing the game Would You Rather, why it was important to be on time. May I suggest reinstituting the utilization of bells at the high school so the kids know how much time they have to get from class to class, and why it's important to be responsible. After a year like we had last year, why would we take this time away from teachers who need every minute they can get with students to educate them on subjects that are the reason why the kids are coming to school in the first place? A teacher/school system's job is not to try and engineer students' perspectives on each other and the hot social subjects of the day. Indeed, this is aspect of a child's development is the responsibility of their parents. In addition, for the other 3 days of the week, the high school has added an additional 40 minutes onto the fifth period for the initial reason of cleaning lunchrooms for COVID. We now know that COVID does not spread through contact on surfaces. Essentially, this goes on and on forever, but we're wasting 200 minutes a week where zero education is taking place. That extra cleaning time is just a study hall for these kids. They're not doing anything. I'm asking the board to reevaluate the time being diverted away from education and return our kids to the classroom. Number two, masks don't work. Forcing our kids to wear them is wrong. It's time to think outside the box on your part. Why can't families sign a waiver stating we don't want our children to wear a mask? What happens if we don't follow Lucas County Health Department guidelines? Are they going to show up and shut down the entire Anthony Wayne school system? This is our school, our tax dollars, our children. This is the third year dealing with this, and we will still be doing this 3 years from now because SARS-CoV-2 will never be eradicated. Forced masking is taking us to a much more dangerous point in time. It's coming very soon. I'm asking the board to develop a plan now. On the horizon is the government trying to force our children to receive a shot in order to come to school, forcing a shot built on a platform that has never been used in humans on a population that has an amazingly robust immune system, was virtually unaffected by this virus, and whom we know are not major conveyors of COVID-19. Positive cases are a red herring. Hospitalizations and deaths are the important measures, and for kids, these are virtually zero. There is no long-term data on the effects of this shot on children or adults, but yet this is where we are headed. Have you seen the insanity happening in Australia? It's been stated Anthony Wayne schools have to follow what our health department says. What I respectfully say is we don't need followers in this time and place. We need leaders. We need you to stand up for the freedom of each of us to choose for our children what we think is best. Thank you for the time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. The next speaker is Rebecca Conklin.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Conklin Kleibomer, and I live at 10934 Lone Oak Court in White House. I am the proud mother of 2 Anthony Wayne students, a 2015 graduate and a third grader. I myself graduated from here, as did my father, as did his mother and father, and my husband is a substitute teacher for the school district. Thank you for receiving my public feedback letter in support of the district's mask mandate and for considering its points on public health, disability, ableism, and exemptions on medical and religious grounds. But tonight I come before you specifically to offer you encouragement in your elected office. It's a hallowed duty you are performing, being in a seat of representative government. This is how we as a free people have decided to satisfy our needs and wants and settle our disagreements. Much of the information and opinions expressed here tonight on any side are not that original at this point. We've been wrestling with them since the beginning of the pandemic. Thankfully, the data are becoming clearer and clearer, and the science continues to improve, all pointing toward the proven efficacy of things like mask wearing to stem the spread of COVID-19. So why this continued division? Some folks are trying to make this be about our liberty, which is indeed precious. But when it comes to our guaranteed civil rights, there's an actual list. There are 10 of them. And the right to willfully disregard public health or endanger the safety of another student or staff member in a congregate setting is not on the list. These folks aren't arguing for freedom. They're arguing for impunity. We do have freedom of choice. We have plenty of choices already. We can choose to homeschool. We can choose to enroll in a private school that may not require a mask. We can choose truancy. But we're also choosing the consequences that go with those choices at the same time. The choice to participate in public education comes with the consequence of public policies. Some folks are trying to act as an individual within the choice, but not carry any of the public consequence. Exemptions are an important tool, and we must protect them for those who need them. For those who cannot abide policy while freely expressing guaranteed individual rights on that aforementioned list. Exemptions are not a loophole to circumvent or opt out of a consequence of someone's choice. I am not a sit down and comply kind of person. Truly, I am not. But there is no injustice in a mask mandate. It does not interfere with our guaranteed liberties. There is no civil wrongdoing in a local school district deciding what is good and true for the community it serves. Because therein lies our most important free choice, the one we make at the ballot box. And we've already made that one. And here you sit as a consequence of the choices we have made. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for putting your name on a ballot, for serving your term, for conducting the public business on our behalf. We are counting on you to do this with due diligence and the utmost respect for our democratic process. We are a free people, but we also have a civic duty to one another. And I do not want any of us to opt out of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. The next is Chris Repass.
Hello, everybody. Before I start, I want to thank the board. You guys have a real tough job. We all know that. And law enforcement also here. Thank you. Our community is very appreciative of you guys, even though we don't always say it. Okay, good evening. My name is Chris. I live on Berkey Southern. I have 2 children. My oldest attends White House Primary, and the other will be in kindergarten in a couple of years. I, like many, would like to discuss this issue and this concern surrounding masking our students for the whole school day. The topic of masking children is complicated. Very loud voices appear each night on TV arguing their position, while others are still arguing on the radio and the internet with millions of anonymous people chiming their opinions in. Sometimes people tell the truth, sometimes they don't. The topic is complicated, but the decision to mask kids might also seem complicated, but it's not. It's simple. The benefits of all-day masking our kids do not outweigh the damage it's going to do to them. Now, I understand that people that want to see my kids masked are not trying to hurt them or have any sort of bad intentions. I know they care about others, including my children. Their motivations and their reasoning come from a place of empathy, as do mine. I don't just care about my family, I care about all of our families. And I know it's cliche, but like we said earlier, we are all in this together. The pandemic has produced all these struggles for us to grapple with, and we got to take one on at a time together. So I hear people talk about the risk masking is to young, especially very young children. But risk implies that something negative may or may not happen. Masking young children is not a risk to them, it is a detriment. The question is how large of a detriment? So I'll explain. Being masked for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, negatively impacts our students in a variety of ways. To start, it hinders the very reason they're in school, to learn, especially for young children. It's more difficult to develop linguistically when you muffle not just the teacher's voices, but their peers. And although we don't think about it much, the ability to see someone's mouth moving, even in your peripheral vision, helps you understand what they're trying to say to you. This is even more so for young children. Have you ever noticed a young child stop and stare at your mouth while you speak, and then look you in the eye when it's their turn to speak? The mask can also be distracting to students of all ages. If you've ever worn a mask for longer than 15, 20 minutes straight, you know you can get this feeling, oh, geez, this thing is stuffy. I just need a big whiff of fresh air. I can't breathe. Well, these sorts of thoughts are running through the minds of our young people too, distracting them while they're sitting in class, trying to pay attention, trying to learn. Elementary school specifically is a vital stage for social development. This is obvious. When you cover the mouth and part of the cheeks, it becomes more difficult to recognize facial expressions that convey emotion, making it also more difficult for kids to respond appropriately and develop social skills that are fundamental in building future relationships. And maybe the worst of all is the fear and anxiety that's growing in an entire generation of young people. When they are told by their elders that there's this invisible disease floating around in the air that's so dangerous that they have to cover their face all day, every day, it scares them. It reduces their confidence in life, in taking chances, in facing the unknown. Some people might be thinking they should be scared, but no, they shouldn't. They're children. For as much as possible, we should shoulder the burdens of the world for our kids. And I know COVID is bad. I lost a family member. I know others who have lost people. I'm not downplaying the seriousness of all this. But according to, I'm not downplaying this. This is very important. I have sympathy for everyone. But we need to look at reality here. According to the CDC, people under the age of 18 have a 99.997% chance of survival if they contract COVID. Now, while some serious cases can occur, we've known from the beginning that COVID does not affect children as badly as it does adults. Kids get COVID, they get over it, they develop immunity. So really masking kids is to seemingly protect adults. But we have vaccines now. They're generally pretty effective. Breakthrough cases can occur, but all the current data suggests that being vaccinated greatly reduces your chances of the disease becoming serious, resulting in hospitalization. Every adult in the United States has had the chance to get vaccinated, every single one. I've been vaccinated. I'm all for vaccines. I think they're an incredible breakthrough in medical technology. I'd encourage everyone to get one. But we as adults should shoulder the burden of the knowledge that life is dangerous. Life's always been dangerous. It's always going to be dangerous. To hoist this difficult truth on our children and stifle their breathing for the mental comfort of adults who have the ability to protect themselves now is wrong. I have sympathy for you guys. I know this is hard. Policymakers, this is very hard. School boards especially. I know you got a lot to consider, not the least of which is liability. And we're all trying to do our best. I'm simply pleading with the board to look at the damage that will be done in comparison to the very limited reward that will be gained from children wearing masks. Let them be kids. Let them grow up with us.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we'll have Jennifer Shammy.
Good evening. Distinguished board members, I have been blessed with no greater job than of parenting my daughter, Mallory. My job is to do everything in my power to protect her and keep her safe as I see fit. I am here tonight to first and foremost thank you for your conscientious and science-based decision to enact a district-wide mask mandate. Thank you. I believe that there is more support for this mandate than may be represented here tonight. I think those who feel like I do don't want to come to these type of gatherings because of the fear. So please consider that. Mallory is 11 years old. And at this time, neither of us have a choice to get her vaccinated. I'm very concerned regarding the plans for the upcoming 6th grade camp to Camp Mishundo up in Hillsdale, Michigan. And that's what I'd like to talk about tonight. I am respectfully requesting you please consider delaying this experience for the health and safety of all of the unvaccinated 11-year-old children that will be going to camp. Mallory wants nothing more than to go to camp. Her big sister went and still talks about it today. She wants to go and have the same experience with her peers and with her teachers and have wonderful memories. Please reconsider sending these children to camp when they will be asked or required to sleep 10 to 12 students in a cabin. At this time, Anthony Wayne and the camp have decided that mandating negative COVID tests in order for the kids to live and sleep together in the same quarters. I cannot ask Mallory or expect any other child to wear a mask to sleep in. But please, I'm asking you, please don't force me to withhold this experience from her due to my COVID safety concerns. If the board would please consider a delay, just a delay, I don't want to cancel. Please consider a spring delay. Then perhaps parents with similar concerns to me won't feel we have to keep our kids home from this experience. It will afford us more time and be able to make the choice to get our kids vaccinated when the FDA's emergency use authorization for students younger than 12 years of age can get it. I appreciate your time and consideration for considering the health and welfare of our most vulnerable generals in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have Micah Ekman.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name is Micah Ekman. I live on Waterville, Neapolis Road. Okay, it's starting. Because I was trained as a surgical technologist, I spent many days in the OR. I believe I have a special outlook on all of this. I specifically know what it takes to break down germs, and I know it takes very high temperatures to kill bacteria off of a cloth mask. I personally know in an OR setting that masks definitely are not made for respiratory sickness. This is clearly evident because in other countries, not everyone in the room is wearing masks. Only the team that's actively working on the patient wears masks because this is specifically for blood-borne pathogens. Surgical masks do not keep all your breath trapped in. It is porous and it allows air to flow through both sides. Also, I was taught for personal protection that if you touch your face, it is instantly contaminated. If masks even did do some sort of protection, the general public has no idea how to wear a mask properly. People all the time are touching their faces, and our kids are generally touching their faces more. Not only is it dirty, but it's also more harmful because you continue to rub germs on it, which touch your lips. Every day my daughter came home with a wet and slimy mask because she messed with it and she sucked on it all day. It was filthy and it was harmful to her health. She broke out at 6 years old and got sick more than she ever had before. She came home exhausted every day, and it was my guess from a lack of oxygen. Do you know that oxygen levels have to be so high in classrooms because it dramatically changes their ability to learn? Besides all that, in a surgical setting, if there is a real threat such as TB, you have to wear a fitted N95 mask. It is specially fitted to your face so airflow cannot flow in or out. In a regular surgical mask, you would not be able to protect yourself. And cloth masks in a real surgical setting is obviously a joke and would have never been allowed by the WHO 3 years ago. But even if you wanted to dismiss that, that's perfectly fine. We are allowed to have difference of opinions because this is America. We are the parents, and we get to choose what goes on our children's bodies. If you want your child to wear a mask, fine. I can't stop you, nor would I try to. If you feel like in order to be safe, you need to mask up and vaccinate, I would actually be fully in support of that. So why is that grace not granted towards me and my peers? We know that not every child can wear a mask, and we know that there are children with disabilities and allergic reactions who may have a very hard time breathing or keeping a mask on. Do they deserve to be forgotten and thrown to the side? What about the child who suffered and can't read because they can't understand or see enunciation and phonics of our language, such as my own daughter? What about the countless kids all around the country who committed suicide? There was a 400% raise in suicide amongst teens last year, and I don't want to go one more day with knowing that children are depressed and stressed and can't be themselves and make their own decisions in this world that is so hectic and crazy right now. Let's talk about bullying. We all know how bad Anthony Wayne is for bullying. I know a child in our high school that was called a racist because she wore a fake mask to school. Let's talk about narrative here. The same teenager was on a bus, politely declined to wear a mask, had the police called on her, people. Police, not her parents, not the administration, the police. We literally come into contact with COVID anytime we leave the house. If my child got sick, there is no way to pinpoint where it came from because I bet most of us out in public don't wear a mask unless we have to. We all mostly do the same things, but no one wants to stand up here and be the bad guy for standing against the majority. But we are here, and we are the majority. I've personally spoken to Representative Derek Marin, who graduated from here. He said there is no ordinance with the Lucas County Health Department. They stopped them from giving out blanket health statements to the general public. The CDC website even says they can only give recommendations. I was told from Mr. Merrick that this power lays in the hands of the board members and that you, on your own, decided that we had to do this. We know the school accepted the $4.3 million from the CARE Act, and I have the proof. And to me, that feels like our children's bodies are on the line here for money and funding. And that will never stand as long as we are here. We know that there are 2 seats up for a year. We know we have 2 men that are here willing to work with us and make sure our kids have a choice, that they get to do what their parents want them to do. And if this does not change, we know that vaccines are coming next, and we will vote you out. We have plenty of parents willing to run. I know I would, and I know what we got the votes here to back it up too.
I'm not sure.
Next is Sandra Jarubik. Jakovic? Sorry.
Okay, my name is Sandra Jakobek. I live at 11335 Birch Point Drive. Mother of 6, grandmother of 7, all but one of my children attended Anthony Wayne. Do I want you to believe what I say? Yes. Should you believe me? No. You need to do your own research to find the truth. I believe you would not be here tonight if you were not very concerned about the physical and mental health of your children. I believe you want the truth. Facts matter. The science matters. What is going on with the mask and the masking policy is a lie, and there is no science being followed. I believe this is giving us something tangible to fight against, which we should, because it is wrong. But it is a distraction to a bigger agenda. We are being divided, and the right to choose what we feel is best for ourselves and our children is slowly and quietly being taken away. Our children are being affected by this divisiveness, our judgmental attitudes towards each other, and the hate being generated by this issue. As far as I'm concerned, this is child abuse. And it is being said that the effects of this on our children is irreversible. There are numerous studies, including those done by the CDC, the World Health Organization, and the National Institute of Health, proving that masks offer little, if any at all, protection from the transmission of viruses. A statement confirming that is in boxes containing surgical masks. I have a picture of that box with that disclosure. You will hear or have heard other parents tonight present the data that proves masks don't work. These policies are causing mental, physical, and educational decline of our children. I will just mention the masking study done by Florida parents. You may or may not have heard of this. The parents were concerned about dangerous pathogens on the mask. The study contains a list of 25 pathogens found on one mask. 11 of them were considered dangerous. Pneumonia, tuberculosis, sepsis, meningitis, bloodstream infections, UTIs, Lyme disease, food poisoning, diphtheria. There's a lot more information in this study, which also has links to the labs conducting the test, their study, and their data. 3 local testimonies. A child comes home, her mom says, "That's not the mask you left for school with. My friend's was prettier, so we traded." Teenagers, at lunch, they go to lunch, they take their masks off, throw them in a pile. At the end of lunch, one teenager picks up the masks and passes them out randomly. These are all local. Third one, a teacher sees that her student's mask is visibly soiled. She could not get that child to take that mask off to put a clean mask on. Vaccines. What is the definition of a vaccine? I looked it up. I have the definition of a vaccine from 9 medical journals, including the CDC. A common theme between them is that a vaccine is a preparation containing live or killed microorganisms that are used to stimulate an immune response in the recipient, which gains immunity. The Salk polio vaccine is an example. CDC definition, May 16th, 2018, the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. CDC, September 1st, 2021, the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce protection from a specific disease. I asked myself, what does that even mean? Why did they change the definition? In conclusion, I'm not speaking because I want my 5 minutes of fame, or I don't even want 5 seconds. What I want is my freedom and the right to choose for myself, as I'm sure all of you do, to make your own choices for you and your families. We are being divided on purpose. If we do not stand together as one people, one nation under God, if we continue to let them control us and destroy our Constitution, take away our ability to make our own choices, our freedom and our rights will be gone forever. That's what this is about. It is not about your health. Do your research. Find the truth.
Next is Brian Cope.
Good evening. 7 years ago, my family addressed the Anthony Wayne School Board regarding the same issue I bring before you today, parental rights and parental responsibility. In 2014, when my oldest son was an 8th grader at Anthony Wayne Junior High, my wife addressed the board regarding the newly implemented random drug testing policy. We were not asking for you to do away with the policy. We were, however, asking to be given the choice as to whether or not our child would be forced to submit to random drug testing at the age of 13 in order to play sports. After laying out a sound and reasoned description of our God-given and constitutionally protected rights, the board would not grant this request, prompting us to pull our son from Anthony Wayne School District and enroll him at St. John's Jesuit, where he attended his high school years. When we enrolled him at St. John's, the comment was made that Anthony Wayne is one of the largest feeder districts into St. John's, and it really doesn't need to be. I'm here today, again, not asking you to do away with the mask policy, but to allow parental choice in making the determination as to whether wearing a mask during the school day is in the best interest of their child. Like the district's random drug testing and its intended effect, this ill-conceived masking policy will provide zero effect on changing the course of COVID, which has been proven time and time again over the past 18 months. I'm not going to spend my time this evening citing statistics and numbers. For every statistic that supports the argument of forced masks and vaccines, there are just as many, if not more, that have come to the exact opposite conclusion. My question to each board member is what changed that caused the policy reversal from optional masks at the start of the school year? COVID case numbers will go up and go down seasonally with or without masks, just as they have done for the past 18 months, not only in the state of Ohio, but around the entire country similar to any other seasonal virus like the cold or flu. How does the board arrive at and soundly justify the inconsistent policies for the district? In the school building, students have to wear a mask while socially distancing, but they can eat lunch without a mask or play sports without one either. I wonder if you have ever seen the Friday night football game student sections packed with unmasked students, not socially distancing, having fun, just being kids. This fun, however, is short-lived, and according to your logic, ends Monday morning when COVID gets serious again and they are forced to mask up to come into the school. If the board was truly concerned with the health and safety of the student body, and you sincerely believe that masking children is imperative to stopping the spread of COVID, it seems that one would take one step further and cancel all activities, sporting events, and send the kids back home to learn. And I say learn loosely. Doing this would allow you to save money by reducing staff and other district expenses, thus not having to worry about the students getting colds, the seasonal flu, or any other illness while being taught at Anthony Wayne schools. And surely we can all agree this doesn't sound reasonable, and I'm not suggesting that in any way, shape, or form. There is a multitude of evidence proving that not only do masks offer little to no health benefit, they in turn cause harm to many of the children forced to wear them, which includes our son. Against our better judgment, along with years of accepted conventional science, we had our son comply last year with the district's mandate for masking. During this period, he developed a cough and sinus issues and passed out twice while at school, once in the hall and another time while having to run on a treadmill while wearing a mask. I am not here tonight stating that any child should be prevented from wearing a mask. I am here to tell you that the masks are not safe and reasonable options for all children. If one feels that masks are effective and chooses to wear one, he or she should be protected while wearing the mask, regardless of whether or not those around them are not wearing one. While we appreciate the exemptions currently being granted, we recognize those exemptions can be revoked at any time, making this solution temporary in nature. As my wife and I said to you 7 years ago, the only responsibility of Anthony Wayne local schools is to educate our children. We're here tonight demanding that you leave the parenting and medical decisions up to us, the ones who know our children best. We are fully competent and capable of making that determination if wearing a mask is in the best interest of our children. Thank you.
Next is Jamie Volmer.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Vollmer. I live on Field Avenue in White House. I am a former teacher, a citizen of the Anthony Wayne School District, and most importantly, a mother to 3 children in Anthony Wayne local schools. In our home, we frequently tell our kids, you can do hard things. In my classroom, I told my students and my student teachers, you can do hard things. Today, I am here to tell you, members of the board, community, and fellow parents, you can do hard things. It is not easy for us to stand up here today. It is not easy to go against the grain and challenge what we have been told and led to believe. It is not easy to dig deep into an issue, finding buried and retracted sources of information because they do not fall in line with the mainstream way of thinking. This all takes courage. We have courage. We ask you to have courage. Courage to question who made the rules. Where does their authority come from? And with what scientific evidence did they form their decisions? We ask you to have courage to explore with us, to find out what is actually required by law, what is just a recommendation, a should, but not a must. We must work together. We have the same goals. We all want our children to be educated together in a healthy environment by the staff and teachers who love them. We want our kids to stay in school. We want them to be educated in person. We need to work together to find creative solutions to our common concerns. In Anthony Wayne, we tell our students to be generals. To be a general means that you are respectful, responsible, and safe. Now more than ever, we must employ these principles that we teach to our students. Be respectful. Be respectful of your own body, your own choices, and at the same time, being respectful to the choices that others make about their own bodies, their own belief systems, their health and autonomy. Be responsible. Be responsible to dig deeper into the data, to look beyond the surface, to do your due diligence before coming to conclusions, and to be responsible for the decisions that you are making because they belong to you and not anyone else. Be safe. Be safe by allowing our children to breathe without restriction, to breathe the air around them instead of their own carbon dioxide and bacteria-laden masks. Keep their mental health safe by refusing to teach them to fear a virus that has over a 99% childhood survival rate. Keep their education safe by not restricting them from school and their peers when they are healthy. I implore you now, Board of Education, community members, parents, now is the time for action, for leadership. Let's be leaders. Let's be generals. Thank you.
Next speaker is Andrew Prine.
Good evening, parents and administrators. My name is Andrew Prine. I live at 8523 Glen Creek. I have a bachelor's degree in aeronautical engineering from Western Michigan University, and for the first 10 years of my career, I designed, built, and tested filters of all different types. It gives me a special insight into the effectiveness or lack thereof of masks, as masks are attempting to be a filter of your exhaled breath. I'll start with a quote from Dr. Colin Axton of Brunel University in the UK. He is a PhD and senior lecturer at the university. Medics have this cartoonish view of how particles move through the air. It's not their fault. It's not their domain. They've got a cartoonish view of how the world is. Once a particle is not on a biological surface, it is no longer a biomedical issue. It is simply about physics. The public only has a partial view of the story if information only comes from one type of source. Medics have some answers, but not the whole view. We're citing 3 CDC studies right now. All 3 are still on the CDC's website. The first study has 7,200 citations in news and media and 265 citations in other journal articles. Basically, the study, Aerosol Filtration Efficiency of Common Fabrics Used in Respiratory Cloth Masks, was attempting to find out how effective different materials were at reducing aerosols and droplets. Halfway through the paper, they say, the test carried out with 1% opening surprisingly resulted in significant drops in mask efficiencies. In the conclusion, they state, finally, it is important to note that openings and gaps, such as those between the mask edge and facial contours, can degrade the performance. Our findings indicate that leakages around the mask can degrade efficiencies by 50% or more, pointing to the importance of fit. It's important to note that a 1% bypass is equivalent to about a 64th of an inch around the perimeter of the mask. You follow the efficiency curve, your typical mask will go to 0% efficiency between 3 and 5%. Also, this paper has a huge correction in which they state significantly lower order of magnitude or more than average resting respiratory rates was tested, or was their flow rates. Basically, this means the flow rate was less than 1/10 of what the average resting breath rate of a human is. This study should have been retracted, yet it is still cited by the CDC. Second study has 653 citations and 21,000 mentions in news and media. It is respiratory virus shedding exhaled breath and efficiency of face masks. Basically, they have 3 groups of individuals that are symptomatic with rhinovirus, influenza, or a coronavirus. Influenza, for reference, is 0.1 microns. A coronavirus is 0.07 to 0.09, so smaller than influenza. And I quote from their study, our findings indicate that surgical masks can efficaciously reduce the emission of influenza virus particles into the environment in respiratory droplets, but not in aerosols. In this study, that is still cited by the CDC, they got 100% reduction in coronaviruses, but no reduction in influenza. Why is a smaller virus removed at a 100% rate while a larger virus is not? The third study, also cited by the CDC, published in May of 2020, is a meta-analysis of 3 randomized control trials that studied masks. And in their results, I quote, We did not find evidence that surgical type face masks are effective when reducing laboratory confirmed influenza transmission, either when worn by infected persons, source control, or by persons in the general community to reduce their susceptibility. This is not cited on their mask guidance. Why not? Lastly, masks and CO2, what the CDC says. Wearing a mask does not raise the carbon dioxide level of the air you breathe. This is incorrect. Simple proof. If you hold up your hand, this is roughly the volume behind your average surgical mask. It also is about 1/4 of the average resting breath of a human adult. About 4% of the air you exhale is carbon dioxide. 1/4 of that is therefore re-inhaled, approximately 1%. Stated another way, 10,000 ppm. There was a study that was published in June of this year, which studied children. It found that the carbon dioxide level behind the mask for children that they were rebreathing was between 6,000 ppm and 25,000 ppm. It's important to note that cognitive impairment can be detected at 1,000 ppm. This study was retracted, not by the authors, but by the editors. And I quote from the retraction: "Given the fundamental concerns about the study methodologies, of which they cited none, uncertainty regarding the validity of the findings and the conclusions, and the potential public health implications, the editors have retracted this research letter." CO2.
Our next is Cole Reese.
Hi, my name is Cole Reese. I live on Woodbridge Road in Monclova, Ohio. I just wanted to come up here and indicate that I am against the current mask mandate that is currently implemented in Anthony Wayne schools. Based on everything I've seen and research and data I followed, I'm not going to go into detail tonight. We've got enough people up here that have done that already. But it's pretty clear that masks are an ineffective way to stop the spread of coronavirus in our schools and our community. In addition, this virus has very little impact on the kids themselves. So I do not think we should be taking these steps that ultimately provide more harm than good to the kids that we're trying to protect. Even more importantly, it's when we get down to the elementary level, that's where we see the most harm. And I've seen that even in my own kids. Some of the main reasons, these masks do not come home clean. They are filthy dirty. Kids wear the same mask all day long. In order to have any kind of effectiveness whatsoever, they would have to be changing their masks out multiple times a day. And that's just not done. As far as me and my family, to counteract, we do send our kids to school with multiple masks throughout the day, but even then, sometimes they get dirty to the point that they run out of masks. But even my son once ran out of clean masks and was asked to actually turn it inside out and wear it the other way, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of the mask, in my opinion. Not to mention, I believe it causes much mental harm to our kids. I got a son in 3rd grade and a daughter in 1st grade. They're complete opposites. My son loves to talk. I don't know where he got it from. I'm definitely not that way, but it kind of, he thrives off that interaction, and that's definitely inhibited when they're wearing masks. And I see it every day. I see it. He's become more anxious. He's dealing with anxiety issues that he didn't have before this. and he's even starting to have sleep issues, which I don't know if it has to do with the mask or not, but there's been a lot of concern there in the mental health of our kids. And my daughter, she's more like myself. She's quiet, shy, not very outspoken, which you can understand how wearing a mask when you can't hear somebody through a mask, let alone somebody that's already quiet and shy. And that's definitely inhibiting her ability to learn in first grade, as far as understanding letter sounds, sounding out words, and learning to read. She can't see the teacher's mouth in order to do that. And it's definitely, and I'm not recommending that we do, basically, I'm only saying let's get rid of the masks. We need the in-person learning also. I think that's extremely critical, and I applaud you for wanting to maintain that. But in conclusion, I just ask that you suspend the mask requirement, especially at the elementary level, where the masks are highly ineffective. Kids don't use them right. There's no way that it's protecting anybody. And I also ask that you try to stand up to the health departments and question why the quarantine guidance is different, whether they're wearing masks or not, because that's clearly not right for kids at the elementary level. So thank you.
Next is Andrea Grooms.
My name is Andrea Grooms, and I'm a resident of Waterville for nearly 9 years. I have 2 children who have grown up in the Anthony Wayne Local Schools and who are both now at the high school. We are proud Anthony Wayne Generals. In fact, you'll see my kids supporting the name on their jerseys throughout the school year. And we will always advocate for the schools and the leadership of this community. And I come tonight respectfully to express concern around our quarantine policy. We have entered now our 3rd year of disruptive education. And while I had hopes that this year would be back to normal, I'm disappointed that we have reverted back to adopting the guidelines by the Lucas County Health Department. Guidelines that are not legally binding and now part of our policy for the start of the school year. Several weeks ago, we had roughly 200 students who were quarantined, as Dr. Fritz had mentioned earlier, for 10 days, which is 3 days more than the CDC or the Ohio Department of Health recommends. Assuming a 7-hour school day and missing 10 days, this one event resulted in 14,000 hours of lost instruction time. Not to mention the hardship that it places on parents, the anxiety of our kids feel when getting behind in school assignments, and the heartbreak our high schoolers and seniors specifically go through when they're told they will not be able to participate in an extracurricular event, knowing that they will never have the opportunity to experience it again. Yet this is only for the unvaccinated, even though several studies have proven, one specifically just released this past August from Johns Hopkins, that fully vaccinated individuals can still transmit and contract the virus. So I'm curious as to why then the vaccinated get a pass on the quarantine policy, and while the unvaccinated must be quarantined. My question tonight is twofold. One, is the district tracking those students who are quarantined? I'm curious as to know the percentage of those who tested positive after exposure. Are we using the data? Are we using this to make informed decisions moving forward to negate or support the need for quarantining? In fact, per the CDC, the highest rate of possible transmission occurs between day 1 and 3. Interestingly, most are not even informed they were exposed until day 3, which is beyond the point of greatest potential transmission. And at day 5, the transmission rate dropped significantly to less than 20% with a negative test. Yet we're withholding our students from returning to school until day 11. well beyond what any other private or public company is currently doing outside of education. It seems we're holding the least vulnerable and those with least likely to have negative long-term side effects from the virus to a completely different standard. Secondly, has the district started to plan an end goal? And what does that end goal look like? We're not going to stop the spread of this virus, and unfortunately, it's here to stay. We've got to create a plan to work and get out of this. At what point will the district take a stand against the Lucas County Health Department, whose leadership has shown levels of hypocrisy during this pandemic, and to make a decision to move on with no quarantines, regardless of vaccination status, with no mask, with no threat of stripping events and extracurriculars away from our students. And most importantly, to provide a full, robust year of instruction for our students. The levels of anxiety and depression has doubled in adolescents compared to pre-pandemic estimates, according to a pediatric journal that was just released this past August. Not to mention the decreased levels of learning in our students, all for a virus where they have greater than 99.9% survival rate. Tonight, I come to encourage the leadership of this school community to make decisions on how we can operate effectively and without punishment in the midst of this virus, and to establish an end goal. You've given us choices to vaccinate or not vaccinate, choices to mask or not mask, choices to ride the bus or allow for parent transportation, choices to attend school in the classroom or in a virtual environment. Tonight, I urge you to take steps that will allow us to live in the freedom of those choices. Thank you.
Next is Heather Falzone.
I brought friends with me. My name is Heather Falzone. I live in Hickory Valley Drive. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's our Declaration of Independence, written for us by our founding fathers. They had just experienced a tyrannical King George in England and broke away. They did not want that happening to America and put in place the laws of the land of America. The law of the land, the Declaration of Independence, states unalienable rights. Those are our God-given rights given by our Creator. Nobody can take them away. They are unalienable. Not even an emergency can take them away. Nothing can, unless we personally give our consent. Our rights come from God, not man. We do not consent. Do you realize the Constitution is the supreme law of the land? Do you realize that to help keep our God-given rights safe, that as the Union was being formed, we, the one people, created the Constitution, both federal and state. The Constitution are the rules and guidelines we, the one people, gave you, the public servants. You have limited authority. If public servants overstep the authorities we have listed in the Constitution, it is the people's duty and responsibility to bring it to your attention and have you get back to constitutional government or be removed. You do not get to make choices for us. You do not get to mandate anything from us. You work for us. Your rules, laws, mandates, policies, regulations, etc. are for you, the public servants, not we, the one people. We have our rights. And trust me, those that didn't realize that before are now waking up and speaking up. Do you realize that any policy, requirement, rule, law, mandate, and the like is null and void on the spot if it violates our rights, and the one people cannot be punished or fined for not following such violations of our rights? Do you realize that only Congress, who is the legislative body in Ohio, or the U.S. Congress, can be the only ones that make law? You, the schools, the school board members, are under the executive branch, the same as the governor and the president. You have no power or authority to do what you are doing, and if you continue, you are acting under the color of law, pretending that you have the authority, and that puts you in violation of 18 U.S. Code 242, which comes with a fine and jail time. Do you realize that as a public servant, you can be held in your personal and professional capacity? Specifically, the Ohio Constitution Bill of Rights said in Section 1 that all men are created equal, free, and independent. We are independent from you, the public servants and the constitutions. You are to follow the Constitution, not us. In Section 2, all political power is inherent in the people. Government is entrusted to their people equal protection and benefit, and they have the right to alter, reform, or abolish the same whenever they may deem necessary, and no special privileges or immunities shall ever be granted. That means that we inherited our power from our Creator, and you have no power over us. And it says right here that your job is to give us protection, and you are there for our benefit. In Section 3, we have the right to assemble and instruct our representatives. You work for us. In Section 6, there shall be no involuntary slavery. You cannot treat us like slaves and tell us what to do. In Section 7, all men have a natural and indefeasible right to worship Almighty God according to the dictates of their own conscience, nor shall any interference with the rights of conscience be permitted. No religious test shall be required, Dr. Fritz. This tells you right here that I don't have to prove to you what my religious reasons are for not participating in your unlawful laws, rules, or codes. I can do what is right in my conscience, and you cannot ask me anything about it. If I don't want me or my kids to wear a mask or get vaccinated because of something in my conscience, end of story. You need to stay out of our business. Our national constitution has a very specific section, Article 6, Clause 2. It states that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. All the public servants, federal, state, must follow the Constitution. It is the supreme law of the land. Any rule, mandate, guidance, recommendation, or whatever must not violate our rights. Your oath of office says you will uphold the Constitution, not the Ohio Revised Code.
Next is Frank Dudas.
Before my time starts, I would like to thank Dr. Fritz. A couple Fridays ago, I had some questions, and he took it upon himself to call me, and it was after hours. And he sat on the phone with me for 40 minutes. So for that, sir, I give you a lot of credit, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Anthony Wayne School Board and members of the community, my name is Frank. I live on Stiles Road. I have 2 children in the Anthony Wayne School District. I have over 10 years of experience in performing respirator fit test. I do respirator maintenance, and I've also do respiratory protection at my work. I want to start by saying Nelson Mandela once said, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children." Using that standard, our society has the soul of an abusive parent. The pandemic has turned the schools and society's rulemakers into neurotics, punishing innocent children for over a year and a half. When the pandemic began, the lack of knowledge over COVID-19 justified this behavior. The excuse is now gone. It has become clear through science and research that the virus is less dangerous to children than the common flu. Studies like the one in the University of Florida analyzed children's face masks and found the presence of 11 pathogens, including bacteria known to cause diphtheria, pneumonia, and meningitis. The studies also found fungus and parasites. Other studies have found elevated carbon dioxide levels along with lowered oxygen levels. Tests have shown carbon dioxide levels of up to 13,000 parts per million. That's 25 times normal levels. Keep in mind that at levels of only 2,000 parts per million, children have increased heart rates, headaches, sleepiness, poor concentration, loss of attention, and slight nausea. These masks have these kids at 6 times this level. 2 weeks ago, the board took it upon themselves to require masks in our schools, just 1 week into the school year. They did this even after sending out an email that stated masks were a personal choice and one that was made by the family, and that masks would not be enforced by staff. The board is now requiring the use of masks, even though the CDC, Ohio Department of Health, and Lucas County Health Department say that blanket mask mandates are not required. When I confronted school officials about this, they stated the masks, like they said earlier, were their decision and they're not being based on a mandate from higher authority. The excuses given to me, like stated earlier, was that contact tracing requirements were strict and using masks would greatly reduce the number of children that had to be quarantined. When I read the Ohio Department of Health quarantine guidelines, I found out that even when the layers of protection are not in place, that quarantining should be required. It does not state that quarantining shall be required. The use of 10 days is just another way for the school board and local health officials trying to push parents to accept masks. When we spoke to Representative Marin on the phone, he told us that the use of masks falls solely on the school board. In a Johns Hopkins University report dated September 2020 and a CDC report dated August 30th, 2021, which was just 2 weeks ago, they found the average incubation period for COVID in people under 30 years of age was only 5 days. What this is saying is that someone going to show symptoms is going to happen within 5 days. The argument of asymptomatic spread has been debunked in multiple studies. This narrative is clearly being pushed to create fear and further push unnecessary control over the general population. A Chinese study in November of 2020 found that 1,174 close contacts of asymptomatic patients found 0 transmissions. 0. Not 1, not 2, 0 transmissions out of 1,174 contacts. In Respiratory Medicine, published May 13, 2020, they found 455 contacts who were exposed to asymptomatic virus carriers, and once again, no infections. When confronted, school officials couldn't give me an answer to when they would remove their mask rules. The only reply was a word salad filled with baseless nonsense. They have no idea what they are doing. They are blindly requiring these mask mandates with no plan of exit. This could go on forever. The school board needs to tell us under what conditions these masks will be removed. Actions speak louder than words. The school system always tells our children, be leaders, be generals. But what are they doing? They're teaching our children, be submissive, be victims, do what you're told. So what's the community to do? Change needs to come from us. I encourage you in November to go to the polls. There's going to be 2 seats open. I encourage you to research and vote for Andy Preen and Kyle Miller. They're here with us right now. Andy Preen and Kyle Miller believe in giving the power back to the parents.
And next we have Brent Lamabrand. Sorry about that.
EW Board, thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Brent Lamarand. I am an Anthony Wayne and Penna graduate. My background is in business, electrical engineering, and mechanical engineering. I have 2 Anthony Wayne graduates and 2 students currently enrolled. I want to talk about safety and risk management because really that is what this is all about. So I manage lots of job sites. multi-million-dollar jobs with many contractors, employees, customer, everyone. I've also dealt with COVID planning in the very beginning. And I've looked at all the data for the last year. So in the beginning, everyone was scared. It was very difficult to plan. You got lots of views. Now we have lots of data. Some stuff's across the board. So I'm just going to share some simple statistics. Super simple. Make the whole view very simple. So when I do a robot cell, I have to look at the risk of someone going in the cell and getting hurt. If I'm on a job site, I have to look at the risk of someone going on a band lift. It could be anything. So everything is based off of math. We didn't go to the moon without using math. So let's keep it really simple. CDC data only. If we look at the deaths of COVID for children, it is only 313. That is equivalent to 6 kids a state. That's it. We again go to CDC and look at other deaths for children. Again, these children are age 5 to 18. Drownings are 3.6 times more, which would be 1,150. Transportation deaths for children, 7,317. That's deaths. That's 23 times more dangerous than COVID. That is not including injured students or children. They'd be 800 times. So if you look at just that data, there is nearly no risk for the children in what we're doing. So the risk management plan, I don't agree with, that you guys have currently. If I took that data and I made a risk management plan, I look at the most dangerous item. That is coming to school. We should eliminate the schools, and our risk of the items would go away. So just think about that. Now, I know you also guys have to look at risk management because you have your staff. So obviously your staff has many different age ranges and risk levels, which is also part of your formula. So I would suggest, if I were in charge of this, if it were a project, I'd say take a vaccine, wear as many masks as you like. If you don't, then you're at your own risk, and you must sign something, a waiver of what you're doing. So in this review, I feel that the family should make their own risk plan. Some families want to wear masks, that's fine. Some families want to keep their children at home, that's fine. If some families do not feel there is any risk, because there's not from the data that's given, then they don't wear a mask. So thank you for your time. That's all I got. Other stuff I removed that you guys talked about earlier.
Okay, that was the last person on the list from the beginning of the meeting. Thank all the speakers for giving the input and your time tonight. At this point in the meeting, we will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Pam? And Jana. Mrs. Johnson, call the roll.
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent? Yes. Mrs. Gwynn? Yes. Mr. Lutz? Yes. Mrs. Ryan?
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Next meeting will be Monday, October 11th, regular scheduled meeting at 6.